our bodies hold every experience that we've ever had. And that's what the horses are seeing and feeling and becoming part of. So they're seeing what's really going on inside of us, and it's very experiential.
Welcome to Don't Step on the Bluebells, the podcast where personal healing and transformation take center stage. I'm your host, Amanda Parker, and I'm a fellow seeker on the journey of personal growth. Join me as I delve into the stories of gifted healers, guides, and everyday people who have experienced remarkable transformations. Listen in as they share their practical wisdom to enrich your everyday life. And don't forget to hit subscribe and never miss a new episode. Welcome to today's episode of Don't Step on the Bluebells. I am here with the remarkable Sue Willoughby, who is a truth teller, a boundary breaker, and a certified Equus coach who helps women over 40 stop playing small and start living like they mean it. There is so much more that I can share in this moment about what Sue does, but I am so excited that we get to spend this time together talking about really a type of practice that is so dear to my heart, and that is all of the amazing work that you do with horses and helping people really tap into their inner life, their inner wisdom through the work that you and they get to do with the horses. So thank you so much for being here with me today, Sue.
Well, thank you for having me, Amanda. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
So it's a really great time that we're having this conversation, primarily because I am just back from my very own horse retreat where I was a participant. So there's a lot of revelation and insights that I've been having. And it's just amazing that I get to hear more about your experience and maybe even get to unpack some of those things that I've experienced as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm full of stories. You will.
Yay!
But for those who are listening and maybe have less experience with what exactly this type of work is, so I can call it equus or equine coaching or therapy. Maybe you can just give us a taste of what that actually is.
I'm a certified Equus coach, and what that means is that I partner with horses. I'm not a therapist, so I'm not a licensed therapist. That's a different modality. Similar, I mean, not that we don't get into some heavy things in a coaching session, but basically, there's no riding involved. It's just the client and the horse interacting, doing whatever kind of interaction that they choose to do. And I'm the observer. I'm holding space for everybody. And I'm watching how the person is interacting with the horse, what kind of communication they have with the horse, and what the horse is giving them, and also giving me as feedback. So the horse sort of acts as a feedback loop when they're working with the person. And it's very interesting because horses are prey animals, and most people don't realize that. They think, oh, they're big, they're strong, they're powerful, which they are all of that as well, but they're prey animals. So every cell in their body at every moment of every day is focused on taking in information. Whatever their senses are taking in, it gives them information, basically just data. Am I safe? Do I need to do something about this? What is that thing? Is it going to harm me? All of these things, they process it and then they release it, which is a beautiful thing. And then that's just a little taste of what it looks like.
Well, I really love that first of all, that you call out that it's not about horse riding, because I'm sure that 95% of people who are listening or who have had experiences with horses, it's probably usually in a riding context.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I know for me, I only learned about this even kind of work about a year and a half ago. And I'm an animal lover. Like, I've been a coach for a long time. And I was like, wait, what is this? You work with horses? So
Yeah.
I think it's important that you call that out, that it's not about the riding, but also that your role as the coach is as observer.
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are therapeutic riding programs, and I grew up doing that and didn't even know at the time what that was. I didn't realize it was therapeutic riding. I just was like, oh, these, individuals are getting on the horses and it's fun and whatever. But that's another story. So that's why there's no riding involved. It's really just allowing the horse to be a horse, and all of the things and the way that they connect with us. And when we are in their space, which you had said you have experienced, we become one of their herd members. So they need to know, what kind of herd member are we going to be? And they also will look to us for leadership as well, because horses as herd animals will look to whoever is the calmest, most grounded horse in the herd, usually a mare. I'm just saying. Nope, It's not the wild stallion or the crazy gelding running around showing off. That's not who they're going to look to in times of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just saying. So yeah, and there is a very big distinction there, and the distinction also between coaching and therapy are very different. As a coach, as you know, I look at coaching. My job is to work with people to help them find the answers that they already have and just uncover them. And horses are really good at that.
I'm going to ask a question you've probably answered 100 times, but do you have is there a special connection you have with horses? Do you have a special ability to communicate with them, or how are you able to do this?
That's a good question. There's no special. Well, I did go through a
Well, you are
certification.
special.
I am special in so many ways. You have no idea. But I did go through a coaching certification to specifically work with horses, but I grew up loving them. Like, I think every girl has a horsey phase. Some of us just never grow out of it, or some of us come and go to it and from it. And I just always loved being around them. And I grew up with an alcoholic parent. And so being at the barn was like my happy place. And I grew up in upstate New York, and I would, I'm like, drive me to the barn in 3 feet of snow. I don't care. I will be there all day. And in the summertime and everything. And just for the pure pleasure of being around them. And I didn't realize that it was really regulating my nervous system. And it gave me a sense of being grounded. And it was also a heart-centered connection with the horses, which I understand more now. So in terms of training, and I mean, the thing is, you need to know and understand horse behavior. What certain things, like I said, they're always processing information, and they're amazing at it because, like, their ears will work independently of each other. So they could have an ear on you, and then they have another ear on the pasture. What's going on out there? What are my herd mates doing? Oh wait, I heard somebody nicker out there. What do I need to be? So they can do that. Also their vision, because their eyes are on the sides of their head, they can see almost 360 degrees around them. So they're always watching and listening and feeling, and they use all of their senses all of the time. So it's more about understanding what messages am I getting from them, how they are perceiving the client that they're with, or even me, right? And because I know that when I go to the barn, or in the past, and I have had days where it was not a good ride or it was not a good experience, there was a reason for that, and it was usually because I was bringing a lot of crap with me, and the horse is like, I don't need that. I don't, you leave that stuff outside, or at least be honest about what you're bringing, and be okay with it. Because when you try and hide behind a facade, or when you try and put something out there, the horse is like, I see right through that. So they don't put up with any BS, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, they are definitely the perfect mirror. And I remember the first experience that I had with horses in this coaching context. It was, a year and a half ago. It was in Santa Fe, where I had the privilege of going again just a week ago. And we were told that the horses can really reflect so clearly back whether you're in congruence with yourself or not. Is what you are saying true to who you are, to what you really believe or not? And the horse is going to show you that with crystal clarity.
Hmm. It's a little scary.
Yeah. It is funny because it sounds intimidating, and it is, and it can be really frustrating. Like, my own experience sometimes is like, I go in, I'm an animal lover. Like, horses are gonna love me. Everyone loves me. Cats, dogs, and they're like, I'm not coming near you. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? And all of these stories come to the surface right away of wanting to be liked, wanting to be loved, accepted, or inserting my will that you shall love me, or whatever it is. Like, I had to face all of that very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that, because I've seen people, walk into a round pen with a horse, and the horse is, there's three blades of grass on the other side of the fence. And the horse is all like, trying to get at the grass, and just, the horse is just being a horse. And the person will walk in and the horse is doing their thing, and they're not, because the horse didn't run up to them, they'll start saying things like, oh, the horse doesn't like me. The horse is bored. The horse is whatever they're feeling. The horse, they transfer it to the horse. Like, the horse doesn't like me. And that gives some really good opportunities to ask really open-ended coaching questions. Like, why do you feel that? Why do you think that? Well, and then it comes out that, like, well, everybody ignores me. Everybody. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk about that. They're also really good with boundaries.
How have you seen boundaries show up? Is there any example, maybe?
Oh, tons. Yeah, tons. And I don't know if you experience it or not, but so, if somebody is having boundary issues, or they don't have good boundaries, the horses will just move right in on that. So the horse may be standing really close to them. And at first it's like, oh, it's sweet and cuddly. And like, oh, I love that the horse is doing this. And then the horse gets a little pushier, right? And maybe the horse is like nudging them with their head, or they're, whatever, or they're biting at their coat or doing something. And so I can say, initially it's like, well, how does that feel? Oh, it's great. I love it. It's cozy. And then you can see that they're getting more and more uncomfortable as the horse gets closer and closer and more pushy, not in a mean way, but they're just like, hey, 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 hey. And then finally the person's like, no, I don't like this. This makes me feel uncomfortable. Oh, well, let's talk about boundaries, shall we?
There's an equine therapist who is down the road from me here in London. And I have brought a couple of my clients to her over the last, year and a half, 2 years. And one of my clients, I will not say too much, but he had an experience with the horse where the horse just kept getting closer, closer, closer until it was standing on his foot, and he did nothing. It was
Oh my God.
huh.
Ow.
Well, yeah.
That'll leave a mark.
Yeah. He's like, oh, it was okay. I'm like, was it okay? Really? But
Yeah.
in that setting, I was not the coach. There was someone else who was there with him in the arena. We just debriefed, and I was like, how interesting.
Yeah. How's your
Making
foot?
note of everything we've been working on for months.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was something that was so poignant and like really powerful for me to understand. And maybe you have more insight into this, but there could be things, because I consider myself very self-reflected. I do my work, and it's not that I know everything. Like, I always have more to learn, but I really put in the time to understand what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what's happening. And my God, I have never seen it so clearly as being in the arena with a horse. And there could be, and I have goosebumps head to toe even saying it, because there could be challenges that I know, and I've been struggling with them and trying to reason them or work them through in my mind. And then it could be like 10 minutes in the arena with a horse to showcase whatever that exact behavior is. And then all of a sudden, it's like lived memory in my body. I get it. And I always make this distinction between like head knowledge, knowing intellectually, and then really felt experience knowledge. And to me, those experiences, the horses, and with a great coach, someone like yourself, can actually help you like get it, like really get it.
Yeah. I love that you brought the body into it. because that is a really clear distinction. We are up in our heads all the time for the most part, right? And I think, now you having had horse experience, when I'm working with someone and I'm asking them what it is that they're experiencing, they may say a word like I feel mad, or I feel sad, or or I'm not even I feel, I am mad, or I am whatever, or I am scared. Okay, that's great. But what does that feel like? Like you said, it's once it's, our bodies hold every experience that we've ever had. And that's what the horses are seeing and feeling and becoming part of. So they're seeing what's really going on inside of us. And we're up here in our heads. So we can talk ourselves out of just about anything. And that's the difference between, talk therapy and talk coaching. And then when you throw a 1,200-pound animal into the mix that is, 2 inches from your face, you're like, oh my God, right? What is going on here? And they will, like you said, they will reflect what's going on inside you. And it's very experiential. And it does, it imprints, right? Like you said, it just goes right into your body. So that's why I really encourage people to, or have them do some grounding exercises. And if they can't tell me what they're feeling physically, then I will say, okay, let's just back off for a minute and see where you are in your body. What are you feeling? What do you know? And then they really have to stop and think about what they're feeling, because that's what horses do. They're always in the moment. Their awareness is always super heightened. So those are the types of skills that they can teach us, is to be present. What are we seeing? What are we smelling? I love to do this, 5 senses meditation, before we start off, like five things that you see, 4 things that you hear. And then it's like, oh, wow, these things are going on all the time. And that's how horses live their lives, is through taking in information, through everything, through their skin, through their feet, through their, everywhere. So it does put you back in your body and make it more physically experiential, and it'll stick with you. And like you said, 10 minutes with a horse, it could be like 6 months of regular talk coaching or talk therapy.
I definitely had just last week. It's such a classic behavior of mine where I want things. I'm very like achievement oriented. I want to do things, and that might mean I need things from other people and all of this. And I went in to the arena and I wanted the horses to come to me, and I wanted their attention. And so I was trying, all of my cajoling techniques of like, hello, can I pet you? And, trying to be respectful of the space and all of that. But I wasn't getting what I wanted. And then I was just like, okay, Amanda, you don't actually need anything from them. You don't want anything. You don't need anything. Like, let go. You have no idea what they want. Let go of the expectations. I actually sat down. I don't know if that was smart or not, but I did. So I just sat down in the middle and then just let it go. I had to really make that conscious choice. And then 2 of the horses came right up to me. And I was like, holy shit. Like, talk about an epiphany moment for me, which is okay. So when I'm needy and I'm wanting and I'm trying to grab for something, it's very unattractive to whoever's on the other end of that.
Surprise!
And if I just, yeah, right. I mean, I could have told my clients that, right? But as a lived experience, it's not something I fully registered. It's not something that I actually like really was aware that I was doing in that way. The minute I could let it all go and they were like, oh, hey, you're cool. And I was like, seriously?
Yeah, I love that you said that. And I had a similar experience when I was first starting with the coaching program. And we had our very first on-site. And like I said, being a horse gal all my life, I'm like, I can get the horse to do this, I can get it to do that. So I got a little cocky during my turn in the round pen. And I went in there and the horse was just all over the place. And it was very similar to your experience where, I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to show all of my skills and all of my talent. The horse is like, have fun with that. Because I don't really care how skilled of a horse person you are. You're all over the place, and I'm going to show you that. And I was like, okay. And I just had to laugh because my coach at the time, one of our mentors, was laughing, and he wasn't laughing at the time, but since then we've had a good laugh about it. He said, "Do you remember your first time?" And I was like, "Yes, please. Don't even." It was very humbling because it wasn't about my horse knowledge or my skill level or anything else. It was, like you said, dropping the agenda and just letting things unfold, dropping those expectations. And I think that as humans, we are very tied to expectations and having goals and all of that. And if we don't reach the goal, whatever the goal is, then we have failed regardless of all of the things that we learned on our way to trying to achieve that goal, because we forget that even if we learned three things, even if we didn't accomplish that goal that we had set for ourselves, you've got three new things, three new tools, three new aha moments that you had, whatever, and those are going to stay with you. Take them on to the next thing. It's not about the goal. Just like I always tell people, it's not about the horse, because it's not. It's not about the horse. And they're like, huh? I'm like, just hang in there. You'll see.
This is a beautiful segue because I would love to hear a bit how did you get into this kind of work? Where did that journey begin?
Well, like I said, I grew up around horses and not around them. I consciously made an effort to be around them because they felt good and safe. And I just loved their energy. And at the time, and when I was a kid, I didn't even understand what that meant. I just know how it felt to me. It made me happy, I just loved the way they smelled. I would just smell them. I would, people were like, why are you smelling the horse? I'm like, my clothes, I would like, oh, my clothes smell like the horse, he's like, anyway. And so I would take riding lessons and so forth. And then when I was sort of in my late teens, maybe early 20s, I saw an ad in like the local newspaper. Remember those? The paper thing with the print on the, you open them up. Oh, look. And they were looking for horseback riding counselors for this summer camp. And so I wrote them a letter. Remember those? The think paper with the stamp, and put it in the mailbox. And so we communicated back and forth, and so anyway, long story short, I went to summer camp as a horse counselor. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I knew horses and stuff, but it was therapeutic riding, and I didn't realize it. It was a camp for special needs individuals of all ages, and I was in the horse program, and it was fun. So that was part of their, we would do horseback riding. They were mostly leading them around and little horse skill kind of activities. And I didn't know what it was, but I just knew I loved it, and that was great. So, I'd go to summer camp every summer, quit whatever job I had, which, and I'd do that. And then horses just sort of appeared periodically throughout my life. Someone would say, "Hey, I've got a horse that needs exercising," or whatever. And I would be like, "Yeah, okay, great." And it just, whatever opportunities I had for horses I would do that. And then when I moved to Washington State, some friends of mine said, "Hey, we know where there's a free horse." We all know there's no such thing as a free horse. Anyway, she was this cute little Arabian, and she was just adorable. And the woman didn't want her anymore. Well, I found out her history afterwards. She was a smart little cookie. She had been passed around since the time she was young. And she was gorgeous. My friends are like, "Oh, even if you don't do anything else with her, you can breed her." And I'm like, "Oh, great, 2 free horses. Awesome." But she had, acquired some rather interesting techniques to get out of doing work because she hadn't had training. She was taken from her barn young, didn't get the training. The kids would just pull her out and everything. And then consequently, because she was beautiful and everything, she got passed around to the point where she just, she's like, "I'm just taking care of myself, and y'all can just go pound salt for all I care." And when I got her, she was a gray, and she had like gray skin. And around her mouth and around her eyes it was her gray skin was pink. It was depigmented, which I thought was a little weird. And she was clever. She tried to unseat me a few times and never really managed to. And then I moved her to another barn, and eventually, like over the course of a year, I looked at some photos from her, and I was comparing them. The depigmentation had gone. It was gone. And she had been so stressed out by this last barn that she was in this situation, that her skin actually got depigmented. It was amazing. And so it took me a long time to connect with her. And I kind of knew she wasn't my forever horse, but she came into a time in my life when I also needed some support, and some other focus. And we just clicked. I helped her, she helped me, and it was just amazing. And then I was able to volunteer at a therapeutic riding center, got really involved with them. And so, like I said, they've always just been a thread. So one thing sort of has led to another. And I knew that I didn't want to be like a therapeutic riding instructor. I wanted to be more with the horses. So I actually got certified in equine massage. This is a long answer. Sorry. You
No, I
asked.
want it all. I want it. And I'm going to follow up on the thread of what happened to the horse because I need to know that too.
Okay. Okay. Um, so, so then I got certified in equine massage and became an equine massage therapist, which is a different way of, and also a Reiki practitioner. So, with all of those tools and energy work and body work, it gave me a different perspective on how the horses are and how they exist and how to hold space for them while I was, helping them heal as well. So that was really important distinction for me. And then, back to the therapeutic riding thing, I found out about Equus coaching and got into the Equus coaching program, and then went on to be certified as a master facilitator, which means I do group coaching as well with horses and events and retreats. So there you go.
Mm.
Never a straight
Okay.
path with me. Lots of
No, and
diversions.
the story was certainly not too long. You have a captive audience, I promise. But I do need to know what happened to the horse that you knew wouldn't be your forever horse. How did that decision come about that it was time for her to be rehomed?
Yeah. So, first of all, I'm 5'10". So I'm tall. And she was little. On a good day, in her ruby red slippers, maybe she was 14'1", which is a small horse. So she was smaller, but she was sturdy. She was a little Polish Arab. And I just, I knew she wasn't my forever horse, for whatever reason. But I do know that she came, there's a place and a time, and we were brought together for a reason. And I had a riding instructor who helped me find a home for her. And she actually went to a riding stable with a woman who had been a trainer for years and years and years, and had a riding program for young kids and so forth. So she was now teaching young girls to ride. I was like, okay, have fun with that. She would keep them honest. I mean, she still was feisty. She was a feisty girl.
Yeah.
And then I kept in touch with her and kind of, she was also then we have a local Native American a reservation here near where I live. And she was on the reservation as part of their therapy program. So I thought that was pretty beautiful too. So, and I think now I think someone purchased her from the riding stable, and so hopefully she has a lovely young rider. But there was a gal at the therapeutic riding center, a young gal in on the reservation who bonded with her completely, and she would take her on trail rides and everything. I mean, it was just so beautiful. So I'm happy that we had each other for that time in our lives, and that she went on then to not be misunderstood,
Mm,
and that was
yeah.
important to me.
I also find it so fascinating I mean, first of all, beautiful story and unfolding to get to this part where you help people. I know there's so much more richness, and I know you've had multiple career paths, I believe.
A
So we'll touch
couple.
on that in a second. But I also find it just fascinating. Horses, like, they're so sensitive and they're such beautiful animals, and we form such deep bonds with them, but it's one of the few animals that does have multiple homes or houses or all of this throughout its lifetime. I know that horses are very expensive to maintain. I know that's one element for many people, but it's really fascinating. I never really knew much about that before.
Yeah, I think, and it depends. The horse world is like anything, right? A lot of times horses are seen as just objects, and, they're either competitive or they're whatever. If they're off the track thoroughbreds, they've had their racing experience, and that's something different. I mean, they all have different disciplines that they end up in. And I have a horse currently. His name is Moose. He's 16 hands and he's like 1,200 pounds. He is a big fellow. And so, but you just never know what their history is, and or why people, you know, girls grow up, they go to college, they stop competing, they do whatever, then the horses are left behind. And there's also horses that are just, people don't realize a lot of times the amount of care, the expense, and what happens when they can't afford those things. And so, there's rescue organizations out there that work tirelessly to, and sometimes the horse just is done with his job or her job, and they just need a place to hang out, and so they can find a sanctuary. And there's a couple of rescue slash sanctuaries that I work with to do, and then when I work with those horses as coaching partners, it's great because then they have a purpose again, and they like to feel wanted. They're very they have, being domesticated, they have accepted us for, amazingly into their world, and allow us to do things like ride them. And it is a privilege, and some people take that for granted, that privilege. It's not, it's a privilege, it's not a right. And to have a better understanding of the horses and why they do things, and why they may react a certain way, it if you are aware, it's just interesting because sometimes people just don't pay attention to why the horse is having a really big no about something. They're saying no for a reason, whatever that is. And you have to think, is it me? Is it something that I'm bringing to the table? A lot of times it might be like your agenda or your whatever. And they're like, will they do
My need to
what
be loved.
your need to be loved, your need to be wanted? Yes, all of that. Yeah. Um, so they are really heart-centered beings, and they're not just a commodity. And I think that, sometimes people forget that. um, but yeah, it's not, I mean, we know that dogs, I just last week lost one of my dogs, and it was a sudden
Oh, I'm so
thing.
sorry.
Yeah, and we know that when they come into our lives that they're only going to be here for a finite period of time, whatever that is. We don't always know. Horses can live to be in their 30s. So it's different than a dog that may live 10 or 12 or 15 years. Horses are around for a long time. And I think a lot of people don't realize that commitment, or like I said, like with Dream, her name was Dream Angel. That was her registered Arabian name. It's kind of like My Little Pony, right? Dream Angel. Her little sparklies in her mane. No, but they don't. She was misunderstood, and she was taking care of herself, and that's what she was doing because that's all she knew. So when she would go from owner to owner, and people would pass, they're like, "Oh my God, what a beautiful little era!" Blah blah blah, and they didn't give her the time and the respect that she deserved to be herself. Like she would come up with these tricks, and I don't mean tricks, I mean like things that she would do, these behaviors. Like at one point, when I would go to take off the bridle, she would pull back. It would get caught like in her mouth. She'd pull back and rear up. And I'm like, okay, we just can't have that. Right. So then, of course, I would get nervous that every time I go to take the bridle off her, she's like, okay, I don't want to disappoint you. So I'm going to do this thing. So one day I just said, let's go out in the round pen and let's just practice. Let's just do this. I said, I got all day. She's like, okay, great. And we just worked on it. It was like, and you just have to be okay with, you don't, it's just little things. So it could teach
I
us a
guess
lot.
that's also pretty miraculous for people who just come in, someone like me who just enters for this tiny snippet, and we're just getting to see this mirror. And sometimes you understand, like, I assume maybe you can shed light on this. I'm making the assumption that the coach knows a bit about each of the horses and maybe some of their backstory. So they're able to reflect back, oh, how interesting. Like, because I think there's something about the relationship that you pick as well with the horse. But anyway, long story short, what I'm trying to say is that we only get this snippet in the horse's life, but there's a whole other, they live a whole life when I'm not there for an hour and a half or however long it is.
Right. And they do live a whole life. But to your point, yes, they do live a whole life and they have lived a whole life. And you are seeing them for a little snippet. And a lot of people say, well, do the horses need special training for this? And I said, no, they don't need special training to be a horse because that's all they're doing. And however they're showing up for you for that hour and a half is because they're showing up with whatever it is that you need. You can take the same horse and have them work with two different people, and they're going to exhibit different responses and different behaviors based on what they're getting energetically from you or from someone else. So, yeah, it is interesting. And like I said, there's no special training. They're just being themselves.
So what does that look like when someone comes to work with you? So they say like, "Hello, I would like to do coaching with horses." What do you do? What does a session look like? What are you looking for? How does that work?
Yeah, well, it all depends. People will come with any, maybe they've been in therapy, like you said, like you took your client to, that you'd been working with, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, haha, okay, surprise. That's interesting. Horse was standing on your foot for half an hour and you didn't even say
How
anything.
interesting. Boundaries, did you say? Huh.
Right. So somebody may and they may just be stuck, and they may say, hey, I've heard, I would love to have this experience. Some people just want the experience of being around a horse, and other people may be, it's usually because somebody is stuck, or they want to make a change in their life, or they, and let's face it, I mean, when women get to a certain age, or when people get to a certain age, especially women, they may have had one identity that they have, whether it's a corporate executive or a stay-at-home mom or whatever. The kids are out of the house. Now you're an empty nester. There's so many different things, but you may have been identifying with one of those things for many years. And now you don't know who you are, or you don't know where you want to go, but you know you want to go somewhere else. And it's scary to be a beginner again. And I think that is the biggest thing. We have a lot of fear around being judged, looking stupid. That's, goes along with being judged, or failing. That, whatever we see as failure. And we talked about that earlier, where it's like, oh, well, we have this goal. I want to, I want to be in a new career doing this. Okay. Do you even know what that entails, or what is so horses can help with all of that stuff. Okay, so that was this that was the setup. Now we'll answer your question. So so let's say somebody comes and they may not, maybe they say, I just don't know how to experience joy anymore. I don't know what that looks like for me. I don't know what that feels like for me. I just know that I don't, and maybe it's not full blown depression, or maybe it is depression, or maybe whatever it is, but I need to be able to feel joy or experience joy. And I don't even know how to do that anymore, because we lose that after over time. You talked about my many jobs and so forth. I'm always curious. And I think losing your curiosity, losing that kind of zest for life, sucks the joy out of us. And there's a lot in this world right now that is sucking the joy out of everybody. I'm just going to leave it at
Mhm.
that. I don't think I need to go
Yep.
into any details. But having said
If you're
that,
if you're listening in 2025, you know what she's talking about.
right. And to that point, we allow all of those negative forces to come in because we can't block them. It's like this, when you drive past an ugly car wreck, you're like, oh, I got to look and see what's going on in there. I can't look away, right? You can't look and you can't look away. So it's all of that stuff. Anyway, back to the joy. So let's say somebody comes and they want to be able to feel joy again. And okay, great. That's awesome. Well, you think we're going to do this in one session? We can try. It may end up being more than one session. So I'll ask them about an intention, and I'll ask them kind of why they feel this way. And maybe there's some things that have happened. So with some knowledge, maybe we've had a couple of offline or online sessions or something prior to them coming. I'll ask them to set an intention for that session. And then I'll give them some insight into how they can interact with the horse if they choose to do that, and what that looks like, and how to be safe, because I want them to be safe. They are in there with a big animal, and the animal is at liberty, meaning that it's just can roam around. There's no, unless they want to lead it around, they feel safe or whatever. Um, but the horse is just free to do whatever the horse wants to be a horse. And then I will let them go in and interact however they see fit. And like I said, it may be, I will just observe for the first few minutes and see what's happening and what kind of interaction they're having with the horse. And then I'll ask them what they're experiencing or what they're feeling. And a lot of times the intention that they set initially is not what we end up working on, because very quickly, as you said yourself, it becomes evident what's really going on, whatever it is, whether it's, and it's interesting because, you know, sometimes I'll have people just walk into the arena and just stand there, and just being in the space with the horse, or in the presence of the horse with their energy, they may start sobbing, and they may, just everything sort of melts away, because maybe this is the first time that they feel safe and that they feel not judged. Horses are not going to judge you, right? They're not going to laugh at you. They don't care what you're wearing. They don't care how much it costs. They don't care what kind of car you pulled up in. None of that is anything that means anything to them. They're just like, how are you showing up? Are you showing up in a way that I feel safe and that I want to be close to you? And it's interesting because if someone goes in and they're very guarded, for whatever reason, like for example, let's go back to the joy. I want to have more joy. Okay. I'm watching them interact with the horse, and they're very stiff and they're very, and I said, how's that joy working out for you right now? Tell me about how you're feeling. Are you feeling joyful? No, I'm not. Okay. What does joy feel like to you? I don't know. All right, let's explore. And the way that they're interacting with the horse may be very stiff. And eventually, it may happen in one session, or it may be in small increments over a number of sessions. They're trying one thing, whatever it is that they're wanting the horse to do, they're trying, and they're getting the same result. Okay. What else can you try? What else could you attempt to do? So it allows people to understand, oh, if I'm doing the same thing and getting the same result, maybe I should try something different. Maybe I should try a different approach, right? Maybe I should drop some of my expectations. And when that wall goes away or starts to crumble, the horse is like, okay, that's what I'm talking about. And the horse will come over, like you said, when you sat down in the middle of the arena because you're like, horsey, like me, please, like me, like me, like me, like me. And the horse is like, what is your problem? Please.
Back off,
Little
lady.
needy there. I don't think I want you, Um, or like you said, some people will just run up and like throw their arms around a horse, and the horse is like, nah, uncomfortable. So then when you did let down your guard and you're like, okay, whatever, the horse is like, okay, I'll come over now. Because now you're being congruent. Now your insides are matching your outsides. And sometimes by the, with the joy thing, for example, pretty soon the person is like, well, what would you, what would feel fun to you? I don't know. Maybe I like to skip. Okay, skip. And then they're skipping around. The horse is like trotting around behind them. And I'm like, now how do you feel? And how do you feel in your body? What does it feel like now? Is joy still this dark thing that you can't touch? No, I feel lighter. I feel, so it's interesting. So that's kind of a typical session.
It's so interesting because listening to you, you're using the word joy in this example, but I could imagine like anyone who does this with leadership, like, oh, I want to be a good leader. And it's like, well, what is a good leader? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you could imagine just instantly what those behaviors might be. Well, how do you lead your team forward in this situation or that situation? I used to work in leadership development, so I'm also like, oh yeah, that would pinpoint some of those challenges
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Horses are great at teaching leadership because, like I said, they're herd animals. So, what is a leader? When we think about what kind of leaders in our work groups, in our life, in our whatever that we're drawn to, are we drawn to ones that are like scattered all over the place and or bossy? I used to have a boss that would literally send an email and then walk out to your desk and say, "I just sent you an email," and I'm like, oh my God. Go back in your office, little man,
Thank
and
you.
leave me alone, please. Please, I'm begging you, right? But just micromanaging, right? Are you a
Mm.
micromanager? Well, horses are funny because, they're really good with leadership and they will put you in your place in a heartbeat. So it's fun to see a team, like an intact work team, come to a half day session or something. And each individual team member may have their own session, right? While everybody else is watching. Now, it can be also very, very vulnerable, right?
Wow.
Because things are going to come
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
However, it also gives all those team members a better insight into how to interact with that person. Why does that person always defensive? What is the deal? Why is this person always bossy? Because you see how they're interacting with the horse, and then it gives better insight into how they can communicate with each other. And then also when they do like a group activity, which is really interesting, like you've got one horse and then surrounded people in different positions around the horse, and the horse is at liberty trying to get the horse to do a specific task. That's exciting.
As the coach.
Yeah, that's really fun to be like, okay, what role do you have again? I forget. Uh, but horses will look to you, even if even if it's your
So
own
you play the
horse.
role of the child in this
Yeah,
family?
but horses will look to you for leadership, and if you are not a strong leader, take they will take the lead, and that may not be exactly the kind of relationship you want with your horse.
Maybe you can share if there's some like, I don't know, remarkable transformation or some like really beautiful healing that you've witnessed that you can share with us.
Yeah, so many examples. I recently had a young person come through, and I don't always work with youth, but you know, it was something that was brought to me, and we were just spending time with the horse, and you know, they were just brushing the horse, and interacting with the horse, and things were pretty surface and about what was going on, and I was being very cautious about it, without going into a lot of detail. And finally, towards the end of the session, I said, how else can I support you? What do you need support with? And all of a sudden, everything sort of came out. They were transitioning. Their father wasn't paying attention to them and didn't have a good relationship with their father because, all of these things. And they had not had anyone that they could talk to about it where they felt comfortable. So, it was just the one session that I had, but being able to hold space and have this young person speak their truth about their life and where they were and how they were feeling was huge. And it was really, it was a lot. It was a lot, but it was just by being with a horse that they were able to do that. So hopefully them feeling comfortable enough to speak those things out loud, and that maybe then they were able to take that to the people that really mattered. That,
It's a testament to the safety that you create and that the horse creates, that there's this beautiful space of non-judgment that probably they finally felt safe enough to be able to say the thing that's been with them. And I know, yeah, the pure power of being able to speak your truth even once when you felt so afraid or like no one cares or no one will listen, like that's life changing. That is absolutely life changing.
yeah, exactly. And that was a young person, and there's a lot of women in their midlife that feel that same way. They have not been able to be themselves to the point where they don't even know who they are anymore. So, if I can help a younger person not have to get all the way to midlife before they figure things out, great. And if I can help someone later in life that is experiencing something that they can't talk about or that they can't even touch or reach, then that's what I want to do.
It's so beautiful. I would love to hear more of these stories, but I know that we're coming close to the end. We're not quite there. But I would love, just also for my own curiosity, but also for everyone who's listening, if people were interested to work with you, is that in person in Washington? I assume it's in person, but go on.
So I can do coaching online, and not with horses, obviously, but because I have been around horses enough, I have a little horse sense that I bring to any of my online, so I can kind of call both on stuff. Anyway, but yes, in Washington, I can also, I have people I do retreats in other locations. Um, if someone has a retreat experience that they're building, I can be invited in to do an Equus coaching piece of it. I can work in other locations, you name it. I mean, I can travel to other locations, but if anybody wants to work one-on-one with me, it could be either here or at a retreat location. So yeah, and it's just basically just get in touch with me, and we can talk about what your needs are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you also shared just a bit in your own journey that you've done different trainings and things like that. Are there any resources, cuz I'm willing to bet that people who are listening who have maybe never gotten to encounter something like this will be really curious to learn a bit more about how maybe they can deepen that relationship with horses. Are there any resources like books or training schools, things like that, that you would recommend someone check out to learn more?
Yeah, actually, the Center for Equus Coaching is where I did my training, and a lot of the a lot of our facilitators and our coaches also have educational programs. So, or you can go, you don't have to get a certification in equus coaching just to go through that experience. And a lot of times if I do a weekend retreat, people will come away with that knowledge. But if you do, or if you're interested in being in more of a coaching role, let's say you're already a coach and you want to add this to your repertoire, then I would check out Center for Equus Coaching, or you can also contact me and I'm happy to talk to you about the program and what it entails if it's something that you think you want to do. You can go to, a lot of times we'll have a demo day type of an event where you can go and say and have that experience, see what it looks like, take part in it. So those are some things that you can do, and you can Google equine-assisted coaching or something like that to get more resources as well. Yeah, there's a number of different programs out there, not just the one that I went through.
And you also have a podcast,
I do.
right? I don't know how much you talk about your horse coaching on the podcast, your equus coaching, but please tell us what that is because, yeah, just listening to your wisdom, your voice, I'm sure people are going to want to tune into more of that as well.
So the name of my podcast is Midlife Strategies for Badass Women.
Ha! Love it.
So I have amazing guests on. I do solo episodes as well. I don't necessarily talk about the equus coaching. I do that a lot more on my guest spots when I guest on other people's shows.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And so, yeah, but it's fun. I have really good guests on, and these are women and a few men who have done amazing things in their lives, or not even amazing things, but they've just had incredible experiences. I had a woman on who has summited all 7 peaks, the 7 major peaks in the world, and some of them more than once. I mean, and done a lot of extreme, races and all of that stuff. And she's just an incredible human being. So the reason that I am doing that podcast is to let women know that it's okay to try new things. Be curious, be aware, it's okay. Don't worry about being judged. Just get out there and do some stuff. So
If you were to give advice to a woman who is listening now, men, you can also listen to this, by the way. But if you're giving advice to a woman who maybe is in that second part of their life and they're feeling really at a crossroads, like maybe they don't really know who they are anymore, what advice would you give them?
be the horse.
Hmm.
No,
I'm like, fantastic.
okay, that's interesting. But what I would say, and by that I mean,
You're like, by the way, that's true.
yeah,
And
be the horse. And by that I mean, start being curious about everything. Start looking at the world through beginner's eyes. Go back to how curious you were when you were a little girl and everything was just full of wonder. I mean, we take everything for granted. The road that we take to the grocery store or to work or to, whatever it is, dropping the kids off or someplace, either take a different route, or when you're on the same route that you take all the time, go slower, stop, get out of the car, whatever. Look around. Find one thing, note one thing that you have not seen before or that you've driven past 100 times. Because when we start to be curious, it builds our awareness. And it's also, when you look at things through beginner eyes, it really does shift your perspective. And when you go to try something new, you are a beginner again. And I think that that's really hard for people. Think about the horses. You're not being judged. The only person that's judging you really is yourself. Be curious. Put on your beginner glasses and look at the world differently. Just, shift your perspective.
so, as we're coming to a close now, are there any last words, anything else that you would love to share that you didn't have the chance yet?
No, I think just don't be afraid to try new things. I mean, I've tried a lot of things in my life and we didn't get into all of them, but everything from stand-up comedy to roller derby referee to private pilot. I mean, a lot of things. Don't be afraid to try something new just because you're afraid you're going to look stupid. Like I said, it's I'm a lifelong learner. I love new experiences and yeah, I think it's really important that we continue to live and not give up.
This has been a beautiful conversation, very timely. I'm so grateful that I could have you on. And everyone who's listening, you're going to have links to all of the ways to get in touch with Sue in the show notes. So please do check those out and get in touch. This is a resource you're not going to want to miss. Thank you so much for joining us. And to everyone who's listening, I will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Don't Step on the Bluebells. If you enjoyed this conversation, please give the podcast a 5-star rating wherever you listen. And don't forget to hit subscribe and follow along so you never miss a new episode.